This is Dr. Chris's Radio Horror Program, 91.3 FM, WCAW in Worcester, Massachusetts, with a recorded interview with Goth model Kyrie Koffin to talk a little bit about her career. Thank you for coming on the show with us, Kyrie.
Yeah,
How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good.
Awesome.
I'm excited to be on the show.
Fantastic. You were telling me a couple weeks ago that you were just in a magazine. What magazine were you just in?
I was in a magazine called Coffin Cuties Magazine.
I am somewhat familiar with it, but for anyone not familiar with it, why don't you explain a little bit about what it is?
It's just a bunch of kind of like horror, themed models that do a bunch of crazy shoots, concepts they come up with, or the photographer comes up with, and they tell a bit about themselves in each magazine, and then they have people they had they have drummers or musicians from different bands or whatever also do interviews in the magazine. So yeah.
So it's like a gothic horror magazine version of, would you say like Maxim or something? Because most of the covers are with scantily clad horror women on it, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Was the photo shoot you did with the flames around you?
Yeah, that was actually an edit one of my followers made, and then we just kind of used it just for online purposes.
What was your photo shoot exactly?
My photo shoot was like a vampire. I was in a coffin and I was wearing latex, and it has spikes on it, and it was just really cool because I got to work with a bunch of artists from Minnesota, and we did body body paint and stuff, blood and all that fun stuff.
Was this the photos where you're tied up in the coffin?
No, no, those that was a different shoot, but it was the same set.
How long does it take to do a shoot like that? And what do you have for like input and control over what you do?
Um, Usually, I say, I'm like, well, I like this concept, and I'm like, can we do this? And the photographer I work with, James, he's amazing, and he makes all these insane sets and everything, and he usually does it with just stuff he has, and he sets up the sets and makes your image come to life pretty much. It's usually an all-day process, so we do hair and makeup, and that takes a few hours, and then we do the shoot, and we do different sets, so we'll do maybe an hour on one set, and then we'll change it up or whatever, or add more makeup or more blood, the usual.
Is this like a pretty involved, usually like all day event that you have to schedule out time for? Okay, where did the idea to come up with this modeling career come from? Where did Kyrie Koffin come from?
Well, I think it's I remember I was actually on Facebook and one of my friends was like, I'm looking for alternative girls to model for our website and whatever, and I was like, I'm interested in that. So that's how I kind of got started, and their website I don't think is no longer a thing anymore, but um, that's how I got started, and then I just kind of came up with the name. I think I was just thinking looking at other models names and stuff, and I'm like, what rhymes with Kyrie? And then it was Coffin, so I just added it with a K. So yeah.
What are you hoping to get out of this career as Kyrie Koffin?
I'm hoping to make it a full-time thing, to be honest. I want to make it a full-time thing and be able to live off doing modeling. That'd be a dream come true. I want to be able to just do the kind of stuff that I like to do, do fetish modeling or do horror-related stuff, and actually make good money off it.
Are you do you want to stick to modeling, or do you want to branch out and do acting?
anything, I'd like to be more of a personality, kind of like Elvira. I think that would be really cool. But, so, yeah, I do want to branch out and do more stuff.
Do you come up with all the concepts yourself?
Not all of them. I come up with an idea, and then, like, people will, like, add to it and put their own art style into it and stuff. But sometimes people come to me and they're like, I have this idea and I want you as the model, you know? So, yeah, it depends on the shoot. But a lot of them, most of them, yes, as they are my ideas.
Talk a little bit about the one where you have, I gotta find the picture. You have, what looks like a shadowed pentagram around you. You're nude, and you have a shadowed pentagram, basically encompassing you.
Mhm. Yeah, that one. One of my like photographer friends was like, I have like one of those. I can't. A projector. A projector. That's what it's called. He's like, yeah, I have a projector, and he's like, we can like make images on your body, and it'll look really cool. And I'm like, oh my gosh, let's do a pentagram. And he's like, okay. So like then we did that, and it was like we did a nude shoot with a pentagram, and that was like my first like nude shoot ever, and I think it turned out really cool.
So you're not opposed to doing nudity as shoots, as long as it's in like, as long as you have as long as it's in taste.
Yeah, as long as it's for like the sake of art or whatever, you know. It has a cool concept with it. I don't mind doing that.
Have you worked in have you done any spokesmodeling?
I've done like modeling for like clothing lines and stuff. People will send me like merch, or they'll send me like pillows or something they want me to advertise on like online or whatever. So I've done stuff like that where I take the photos or a photographer takes the photos and they use it as advertising. So yeah.
Was there any influence growing up that kind of, helped you create that your look for yourself? And when did you start kind of developing this whole look and attitude within your pictures and yourself in your own personal life?
Growing up, I came from a really, really religious family, and I was very sheltered. So, like, a lot of my shoots, I'm like a sexy nun or like a priest or something, you know. So I feel like that influenced me a lot. And so I put a lot of that stuff into it. I'm not religious anymore, but I was. So, like, just kind of stuck with me. So I do a lot of that kind of stuff that influenced it. And then, what was the rest of the question?
That was pretty much it, because I was gonna say that you would fit right in with like the band like Ghost or something.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I like their aesthetic.
You said you grew up with a really heavy religious background. Did that influence you to become a pagan or Wiccan?
Yeah, I feel like I was just kind of looking for something that made sense, and I think that being a Wiccan made the most sense to me. So I just kind of kept looking into it, and so, yeah, it just makes the most sense, and yeah.
What horror movies were you a big popular fan of growing up?
Say that again?
What horror movies were you a really big fan of?
I was a huge Vincent Price fan. So, like, House on Haunted Hill and The Last Man on Earth and all those movies I was a big fan of. Those are kind of like the only ones I saw were the black and white horror movies, because those were the only kind of ones I could watch for a while of my life. So I grew up with like the classic, like, so yeah, I feel like that also influenced me a lot because I was obsessed with those movies.
There's a movie that just came out on DVD this past week. It's called The 13th Ghost of Scooby-Doo. Oh, sorry, Scooby-Doo and the 13th Ghost. It's actually a direct-to-DVD Scooby-Doo movie that is a sequel to the animated series of the 80s called The 13th Ghost of Scooby-Doo that starred the late, great Vincent Price as Vincent Van Ghoul, who was this warlock that teamed up with Scooby, Shaggy, and Daphne and Scrappy-Doo to hunt down demons that Shaggy and Scooby unleashed from something called the Chest of Demons. And even though Vincent Price has been long passed away, voice actor Maurice LaMarche is doing an impersonation of Vincent Price for this animated movie to give closure to this long-running Scooby-Doo mystery of the 13th Ghost, which the cartoon ended after like 13 episodes, but they never caught the last ghost. And this animated movie kind of gives closure to this old series from the 80s.
Oh, that's so cool. I'll have to watch that.
The 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo has been on DVD for a while, so it's pretty easy to come by, and it's back in print, obviously, because of the movie. But the movie itself is a great testament to this one and only Vincent Price cartoon series, because this is the only cartoon series that he was ever heavily involved with, because he narrated the opening of every episode. He was part of the theme song, and then he's in every episode, again, as this, like, cartoonish kind of warlock, but it is... The character looks exactly like Vincent Price, and again, it's his voice. So it was a big influence on a lot of people discovering who Vincent Price was that may not have been familiar with his films, but obviously it was like a gateway to discover his body of work.
Oh, that's so cool. That's amazing. I didn't know that.
Where does the in a lot of your pictures, besides it being like horror related or gothic, you also have a bondage, fetish, BDSM kind of theme to your pictures. Where does that come from?
I think that just comes from like personal interest, like just like role play and like just all that stuff. And yeah, it comes from personal interest. And I love latex, so doing shoots in latex and bondage and everything. So. Yeah.
When you're getting ready for these shoots, is there any particular bands that you basically have on the background to help you, get in the mood for this, or is this like a day-to-day lifestyle for you?
It's pretty much a day-to-day lifestyle, but it depends on the shoot. Sometimes I do. Like if it's more of like a mythical-looking shoot, I'll listen to more of like melodic black metal while getting ready, and so it really depends. Yeah.
Do you want to go to any particular part of the country to like pursue a career? I don't know exactly where you're located now, but if like out here in Massachusetts we have like Salem, but obviously a lot of people find opportunities, let's say in California.
Yeah. I want to like go to California. I don't know if I want to live there, but I definitely want to visit there a lot more so I can work with people. I'm in Minnesota right now, so there's only so big of an art scene here that you can work with, and I feel like I've kind of made my stance here, and I want to move on. So, yeah, I'd like to go to California probably.
Do you ever want to get behind the camera and start like becoming more of a producer or photographer of content, or do you always want to be the focus?
I've actually definitely put a lot of thought into becoming a photographer myself because I come up with concepts and I'm like, I'd love to do this, and I could use other models as the people in the photos, So, yeah. Like to learn how to do photography well.
You have I saw you had a YouTube channel, but it only had like 2 videos up on it. What happened to that?
My YouTube channel is not like my main social media. I've done like 2 videos. I've definitely been wanting to do a lot more, but life kind of gets busy and I just kind of forget about it. Plus, I like I'm like, come up with ideas, and I'm like, that's not good enough. I don't want to do that. So, yeah, I'm kind of my own, like, worst critic when it comes to stuff like that. So I feel like that, yeah.
Where can people find you to contact you for work or to check out your amazing body of work?
Probably my main, like, stuff, my main account is, like, either my Facebook page, Kyrie Koffin, or my Instagram page. And then on my Instagram page, it has a link to my Gmail, which if anybody wants to work with me, they can either DM me or send me an email. And yeah.
Awesome, Kyrie. Thank you so much for coming on the show with us. We really appreciate. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was really fun.
It always when you the one last thing to add to this interview, whenever you see a model like yourself and you have a lot of like dark imagery and dark, very gothic themes, horror related or fetish related, it's sometimes it can be apprehensive to contact the model to be worried like what type of personality are they with these type of pictures, and the conversations we've had and the way you present yourself, it's almost like polar opposites. You're expecting maybe something a little edgier, but then you talk to the model and they're like really sweet. They're a real human being and they just want to be respected as well, and to have respect given to them, and they can be a really nice person. And I've talked to several photographers or other podcast or radio personality or YouTube personalities, and they always get kind of chicken shit about talking to a model because they're worried about like what have they had to deal with, what type of stupidity have they had to deal with, or whatever, that they're not gonna want to talk about any of their body of work, no matter how taboo it is.
I definitely I feel like I get that a lot. Like, people are like, you're so different. I didn't think you would be this way in person, So, yeah, I get where you're coming from.